Welcome to another episode of the MEGJC Matrix. I'm your host, Danny Clark. In our last episode, we spoke with the National Land Agency and the Housing Agency of Jamaica and how they have contributed to Jamaica's growth and development through the areas of land titling and the provision of housing. Today, we shift our focus to another critical element of our development: water. We'll be speaking with your favorite service provider, the National Water Commission, and the hard-working team at the Rural Water Supply Limited, two agencies that work to ensure that we have access to potable water. With us today from the National Water Commission is Mr. Delano Williams, Acting Communications Manager, and Mr. Kyron Cadogan, Senior Project Manager from the NWC. From the Rural Water Supply Limited, we are joined by Mr. Audley Thompson, and he's the Managing Director, and Ms. Ruthann McClymont, Project Design Engineer. Welcome to the MEGJC Matrix.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne.
You guys all right? All right, we're going to be talking about water now. And we know that this is a topic that everybody wants to hear about, right? Especially when it comes to the NWC. But I'm happy that we have here with us today the Rural Water Supply Limited, as well, as they are very integral in this whole idea of access to potable water. Before we get into this, into the meat of the matter, talk to us about the role of Rural Water Supply Limited, Mr. Tom.
Yeah. Well, Rural Water Supply Limited is an agency of the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation. We're basically here to ensure that the rural communities are served properly. Those areas are normally, we call them the non-utility service areas. These are areas that the National Water Commission, they're not that commercially viable, right? And these are rural communities that are sometime in the nook and cranny all over Jamaica. Rural Water Supply Limited basically go in and provide solutions by various modalities to serve these areas. You have the rainwater catchment tank, you have spring entombment, and you have small piped water supply system.
Mm-hmm. Okay, wonderful. So you are in the rural parts mainly, but I'm sure that you're going to tell us about some of the work that you've been doing in the commercial areas, but we'll get to that shortly. Mr. Delano Williams, my friend.
Yes, Danny.
Talk to us about the role of the NWC now.
Well, our role is a lot wider, to be honest, in terms of coverage. We provide primarily water supply services, as in drinking water. We also provide wastewater services across Jamaica. And we are part and parcel of the ministry's mandate, the government of Jamaica's mandate too, to extend the reach of water supply, as Mr. Thompson mentioned, beyond what now obtains and getting into a lot of non-utility areas that before now never had water or had small systems that have lost their way, become defunct after many years, whether because the water supply has dried up or the systems no longer function as they were intended to do so. We operate currently serving over 500,000 customers. As I said, we provide both water and wastewater services. And while we operate in somewhat urban areas, our reach has extended. So we are operating more than 1,000 facilities, over 450 tank systems, and we are harnessing water from over 350 sources, whether these are rivers, springs, or underground wells. Well, wells are never above ground. So you get the gist. What we do is also to partner with the Rural Water Supply Limited in terms of, in a sense, they build it, we operate it. So a lot of the systems that they take on as projects, ultimately the National Water Commission operates it, engages with customers, and then we continue the day-to-day maintenance and distribution of water supply. This also comes in a partnership with the Water Resources Authority. They help us to identify viable sources, so our decisions to supply water are never solely on just the economics of it, because we are always going to have to look at the welfare of our citizens as Jamaicans. So we have to also work with the Water Resources Authority in identifying viable sources of water that we can harness and thereby distribute once we are able to build competent systems to treat and then distribute.
Wonderful. So the WRA, the Water Resources Authority, they are the foundation.
Essentially, yes.
Essential, the foundation. They find the resource and then tell you how you can use it.
Yes.
If you can't use it.
They guide us too, on that very point, in that sometimes the naked eye, and this is what a lot of Jamaicans we said, boy, that river never runs dry from a born. But then the water resources tells us how much water can be extracted, if any at all. Some of the places have what are called seasonal sources. So when it's rainy like now, there is a glut in the river. River always flowing, sometimes overflowing. But in the dry months, it is so low that it's not viable to operate and to distribute water from it. So they tell us how much, because sometimes the same river that you see here appears somewhere else 2-3 miles away. And so pulling water from it will now deplete somewhere else from getting this vital service.
Oh, wonderful. The water sector itself is driven by a policy, and that's called the National Water Sector Policy and Implementation Plan 2019. Now, and the goal to this policy is that we want to increase portable access to potable water by 2030. What role does the Rural Water Supply Limited and the NWC play in achieving this goal?
All right. The water sector policy basically sets out that by 2030, all Jamaicans should have at least 50 liters of water, approximate distance of approximately 500 meters.
What does that look like, Mr. Thompson?
Well, when you look at it, right, that would basically be looking at the rural areas, right? So we'll have to look across all over Jamaica. Look where they are deficient in terms of where are not being served, and look at what modality we can do in order to achieve this objective. You might have catchment tanks, because you might have some areas here, no sources, and you have to depend totally on rainfall, right? And you might have other modalities like spring. You'd have had to look for the spring, as the landowner say, get Water Resource Authority to basically investigate and find out how sustainable it is, and basically maybe build an entombment, solar pumping to pump to storage and serve people, because most rural communities, actually, the ultimate that they want is pipe water in their houses.
Yeah.
Sometimes inside the house.
Inside their houses.
But the policy doesn't necessarily speak to it coming inside your house, right?
The sustainability of that in terms of the financing of that, no, that is where the challenge. That's where the challenge.
And the reality is too, if I may jump in, is that some sources are just not going to be close to where persons currently reside. And so, as he said, the policy speaks to about 500 meters, which is half a kilometer away or a quarter mile. What this is saying is that we might be able to get the water this close to you. It's not the ideal, but at least taking it this close to you means you can access it in maybe 5-10 minutes and get back to your home.
Right, because we did say increase access.
Right.
To the commodity.
So currently some places have no access at all, so they rely on their own means of harvesting water. Some persons have to use their motor vehicles to basically access water, and they'll travel for miles to do so. So we are part of this policy that is saying we are doing whatever best we can with our resources to bring water within half a kilometer to people.
Okay, wonderful. Now,
if I can also add, according to the policy as well, 15% of Jamaicans live in non-utility service areas. So he mentioned that they might have to use their own vehicles to get water, but what also happens is that they might have to truck water that comes at a very high expense. A lot of residents have detailed the efforts that it takes just to get water to conduct just regular household activities. Even the children are affected, women and children in particular, the elderly are affected. So Rural Water Supply's mandate is to help to alleviate the situation in those non-utility service areas, catering to the 15% that is being excluded from NWC's operations.
Wonderful. And Delana spoke about the 5,000 customers that you have. And when we compare that to the number of persons living in Jamaica, 500,000. 500,000.
500,000.
So when we consider the number of persons who, but we'll get to that, right? When we,
We'll help you with the maths. 'Cause
Yes.
that's basically saying about 2 million people.
Yeah.
Because the average household is 4 persons. So you multiply the 500 is really accounts that we have.
Okay.
Times an average household of 4 persons. So you're looking at about 2 million people
2 million.
who now have access formally.
Formally, right. And then we take into consideration the 15% that will be served by rural water.
And he has unaccounted for today.
All right, so we're going to now move into some of the projects, right? How is it that we are giving access? What modalities do we use? So, Mr. Thompson, what are some of the projects that you are currently working on?
Yeah, one of the critical projects that we're working on, you have several rural schools don't have access to NWC water. So we have a major program you call the rainwater harvesting program in rural schools, where we go in and we do rainwater harvesting, putting up guttering on their roofing and building big storage tanks, like 30,000 gallon storage tanks that can last maybe 2-3 months if they have a good rainfall. And this is a program that has been carried out for several years, and it's a very good program that is well appreciated by the rural schools. You have also, we have basically been looking at most of the rural communities, and we're partnering with Water Resource Authority to identify the necessary sources, right? When we find the sources, we build like entombments, set up solar pumping stations, pump to reservoirs and feed the residents. You have systems like Tiki Tiki and Period Spring in Manchester that we basically did system like these, and these have been operating now for like a year and a half, 2 years, right? And we are rolling out other systems like these all over the rural areas.
Okay, wonderful. Ruth Ann, Mr. Thompson mentioned entombment. What does a system that is referred to as entombment, what does that look like, Madam Engineer?
Okay, so basically a captured spring, just an enclosed spring. So concrete or whatever it is covering up the spring, so the spring is flowing through it. But for us to harness the water that is there, it has to be captured, enclosed. And then from there on, we pump to a reservoir, as Mr. Thompson said, and then the residents can have access to it. Because if it's just freely flowing, then there's no way that we can control it. So that's basically what it is.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, wonderful. So you're in the schools and you're in the actual community. So everybody is getting their little bit of water that they need to get, right? So those are the projects that you're currently working on. Or well, you mentioned Tiki Tiki in Manchester, and just to let you know that there's somebody who I met recently who said that he lives in Manchester, and he has his own rainwater harvesting system. So I think now we need to go and find out where he lives in Manchester so we can see if he's on the Tiki Tiki system or how we can get him on that system, right? Absolutely. So NWC, tell me about some of your projects.
There are so many, Danny. We expended last year close to $6 billion in what we call capital projects. These
Repeat that amount.
6 billion.
Billion. Okay, all right.
Yeah, man. Billion. Right. And this year, we've been earmarked for that plus an additional billion because of the growing need and the need to also fast track a number of these projects. So Manchester, again, we just completed a $55 million project in this place called Mile Gully Road, which is a part of the Cobbler district. It's close to Spalding, Christiana area, all right? And I already see that persons are familiar with it and are looking forward to it. We are looking to bring water supply from our 2-meeting system to approximately 100 households or close to 500 people. That's just one of the projects we're doing. We have many larger ones. So any parish you look at, so go back to front and center, main area, Mandeville. There is a Greater Mandeville water supply improvement project where we're harnessing water and sharing water. I want to make this very clear between St. Elizabeth. So areas like Runit and Pepper are benefiting from it. And then we come up via gutters into central Manchester or Mandeville with a series of relift pumps. And this is a major project. The latest segment of it is we are installing large pipelines from Hopetown into Waltham, and we expect also to take on another leg from Greenvale coming up to the roundabout in Mandeville. And these, if we continue right around the country, we just did some work out in Luana, coming through to Holland Bamboo area. We also upgraded the intake at Martha Bray, costing us over 100 million gallons. But what this does, it gives us about 5 million gallons worth of water, which to distribute. And
just to add a little bit more onto the Greater Mandeville system, in addition to just distributing water, we have actually invested in sources. For the Pepper well, we have created enough volume to share between those two parishes, St. Elizabeth and Manchester, but primarily in the Greater Mandeville area. Other projects that we're currently doing would include the Port Royal project. That, given all the development that is taking place in a lot of our major towns, Port Royal, Falmouth, we're investing a lot of resources into infrastructure there to either to improve or upgrade the systems. As I said, for Port Royal, we have been relocating an existing 8-inch line with a larger diameter because of planned developments, given what has happened in the recent pier by PAJ. We are also doing, we're focusing on water, but I would also like to introduce his ugly sister.
Wastewater.
She's very important in terms of what the NWC does, but it also contributes to part of our resilience in terms of how we will treat in the future, given all the drought that we have been having. We hope to integrate those water systems from our wastewater into probably augmenting some of our supplies, as we had mentioned, from Rural Water, who manages the overall sources, really, water resources, which allows us to draw water from, or abstract water from different sources. However, with the drought, which has caused a lot of limitations, it would be good if we have secondary systems that would allow for lesser use in terms of the less potable type water,
irrigation and firefighting and so on. Right. And to add to that, once you have a central sewage system, you can now prevent soak-away systems from going into the water table, which is something that Kingston grapples with. So just recently, we were able to reintroduce 2 new wells, one on Mountain View, one in Crossroads.
Good news for the people of
Absolutely, great news. Right, to bring back approximately 2 million gallons of water. But there is about 5-6 million gallons of water that is still underground in wells that we can't touch now because they're polluted with nitrates. So once a viable wastewater system exists, then we can give Mother Earth time to replenish itself and potentially harness that water in years to come.
Okay, wonderful. Mr. Thompson, we're talking about the projects. I know that the Rural Water Supply Limited and Ruthann, you implement projects for the NWC. What are some of those projects that you have worked on together so persons can get a full appreciation of the collaboration?
Yeah, recently, I think it's about 2 weeks ago,
Ginger Ridge.
we basically opened a project jointly. Yeah, Connors Ginger Ridge.
Where is that?
St. Catherine.
St. Catherine.
For St. Catherine.
Yeah.
Forest.
Yes.
Yeah, a rural community, right, with approximately 1,500 people, have had a spring. We did a nice system there, and we basically handed it over to NWC. We had a fantastic opening.
We did.
Ginger Ridge Primary School is now getting portable water. We had a big project that we did recently for Portland Cottage, Rocky Point, Salt River, right, jointly. We finished that project and handed it to NWC to operate. So we have been working
together.
Yeah, the Coral Gardens, Flower Hill water supply system. Yeah, that one we basically did. And
So how I don't hear anything about the East? I come from the East, and I don't hear anything about St. Thomas side and Portland and such.
So where?
So tell me about that now.
So what is happening in the East is pipelines are being laid. A lot of persons here talk about the road and the road and the road. What they don't realize is that large pipelines are being installed all along that road basically from Harborview all the way around Hector's River coming back into Port Antonio. As a matter of fact, Sir Cadogan can talk about the integration of the wastewater system. But to quickly add, we just recently brought a well back near the Goodyear Oval, and we are looking at a number of other systems. The South Haven system was also recently upgraded to bring additional water into the Yallas area. And so we're able now to move water through areas like White Horses, Botany Bay, and so on. What we recognize, which is why we're focusing on the pipelines first, is that a lot of the water that we pump, because of the age of the pipes, we're losing a lot through leaks. And so if we begin to harness that and to secure what we already have, we can better distribute, and then we identify additional sources now to serve the persons who are not benefiting from the existing systems.
Wonderful. So I have good news for the people of St. Thomas.
Yes.
So all who calling me and asking me when NWC going to carry the water come,
Yeah.
you'll get it soon.
We're working on it.
Working on it. Right.
Then I not just talk about on the mean.
Yes.
You have way up in the hills.
Tell us about it, Mr. Thompson.
Like in the far and beaten track places like Bangor Ridge, right? We basically fix up their entombment and give them back water. They haven't had water for like 10, 15 years. Their system ran down. Place like Cornwall Barracks.
You just said 10, 15 years.
Yeah. Place like Cornwall Barracks, way up in the hills of Portland. The land and NWC will never go those places.
Oh boy, I tell you.
Right?
They leave the heavy lifting to the rural water.
Those are, yeah.
So a lot is happening in St. Thomas then.
Yes.
Portland.
And Portland, of course.
Yes.
Right. And you were going to talk to us about the wastewater.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of, from NWC standpoint, we are rehabilitating a lot of our existing wastewater facilities, which would have been constructed some time ago. Most of these systems were from subdivisions which were handed over to us, but they would have probably gone past their useful life in terms of the equipment and just the whole development. So we're on a program at this point in time to rehabilitate and upgrade several. In fact, we're looking at doing about 13 over the next 3 years, and this will spread across several of our parishes. We recently invested a lot in rehabilitating a segment of the Greater Portmore wastewater treatment plant, for which we invested heavily in terms of money. We're speaking close to $1 billion.
Wow.
And we hope to expend similar quantum to rehabilitate the other section of that. In addition to that, we're also looking at expanding and improving our soap-bearer treatment plant, which currently assists with us decommissioning a lot of our existing wastewater treatment facilities in the Kingston and Portmore areas, which in those areas we have a lot of, or we're concerned about our aquifers, and as such, if we could decommission those and send those flows to soap-bearer, it would also help to augment and, in terms of economies of scale, to have just one facility operating than multiple facilities using energy, so we'll become a little bit more efficient and offer a lot more service to our customers. For a lot of our wastewater treatment plants, we are also upgrading them, which would allow for more persons to be connected to those, which also helps to improve in terms of land development. Our waters are crucial to us, and if we have these facilities dissipating untreated or poor quality effluent, it will also cause damage to our
entire ecosystem
or our environmental and economic situation in terms of tourism and other aspects of our development.
Wonderful. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about increasing access to potable water. And both the Rural Water Supply Limited and the NWC have been doing a fabulous job, of course, in partnership with the Water Resources Authority. When we come back, we'll be hearing a little bit more from these entities. And don't move a muscle, because you're going to be hearing something about that wonderful thing called your NWC bill.
The National Water Commission, the Rural Water Supply Limited, and the Water Resources Authority are making access to water a reality for all. With every drop, we're changing lives, creating jobs, and opening doors to opportunities in all 14 parishes. Stay tuned as we upgrade our infrastructure and facilities to serve you better. The Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, building hope, building Jamaica.
Welcome back to the MEGJC Matrix. Of course, we're talking about all things water. We're talking to the Rural Water Supply Limited. We're talking to the NWC, and we've not left the Water Resources Authority out of the conversation, because they're here. They're the foundation. They find the source so that you can get water. So we're continuing this conversation now. Water shortages in the country. NWC, why I don't have any water in my tap?
Was it that bad this drought? No.
Well, to be honest,
Yeah.
it wasn't as bad as the previous years, I must say. And then the rain came just in time. But talk to us about what you're doing.
Can I tell you what we have done?
Yes, please.
Right. So the last drought that many persons remember, between 2017 and 2019, we had 2 droughts that were really, really bad. And when the reservoir dam levels got down to 30% and 20%, it was sheer panic.
Mm-hmm.
We then embarked in 2018, 2019 on what is called a non-revenue water reduction program. It's a partnership that we took on with an Israeli-based company called Maya, depending on how you pronounce and spell. And they helped us to do what is called a reduction of losses, whether you call it commercial losses, meaning persons who were taking water illicitly, and wasting water, or physical losses in terms of old pipes or pipes that are coming under strain due to pressure changes and so on. They worked with us over 5 years, so we just concluded in the latter part of 2022. Out of that, our non-revenue water index, which was in the high 60 percentile range, meaning we produced 10 gallons of water and 60 to 70% of that 10 gallons was wasting or lost. We weren't able to collect for it.
Yeah.
We are now down to high 30s into about 40%. So we're saving a lot more. So we are now accessing close to 2/3 of the water that we distribute. That enabled us, Danny, and your viewers to supply Kingston even in the worst of times. We had better pipes from Manor Park all the way into Hagley Park Road. We just installed new pipes. Kyron can tell us about that, between Waltham Park, Hagley Park and Waltham Park Road down to Spanish Town Road. We did a $2 billion project, which is basically close to, between that and the Waltham Park, it's close to half of our annual budget for capital projects. We did that project along Spanish Town Road. So we are now able to take water from 6 miles all the way to where you know as St. George's College, Blake Road. And those infrastructure have now helped us to be harnessing more water, and even at the lowest point, whether the dam, the reservoir, or water coming from the St. Catherine Rio Cobra system, we are able to maximize most of it. So when we said to Kingston, we are going to supply you between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m., most people got water. 90% of persons got water at least for 10 hours. And that was tremendous compared to previous years when we were sometimes grappling with customers losing water for 2-3 days. So that's one of the major gains. The pipeline itself now means that when the content, which is another thing that we might be able to talk about. So content is a new station treatment plant we're looking at in the Rio Cobra area. It is
a big project.
Big project. It's a public-private partnership. Yes, right? Whether you want to say it in US dollars or Jamaican dollars,
Or JA dollars.
Or JA dollars.
Yeah.
All right. So it is supposed to be a 20-month project when it starts, and it will harness 15 million gallons of water. Now, in the scheme of things, that's twice what Kingston needs during a drought.
Wow.
Right. So content can be a solution when it is completed.
Wonderful. I'll give the NWC a wonderful, round of applause.
Thank
Good
you.
job,
Yes.
good job. All right, so we're going to talk now about this new thing, the new kid on the block, the mobile app.
Oh, Lord.
What is that?
Yes.
And how do I access it? What services can I access through that app?
You can download the NWC Mobile App from whether Android or your Apple Play Store, right? What it is really customer service in your hand. What it is really convenience. So whether you're at work, at play, whether you're on the island or overseas. We have customers in Switzerland. We have customers around Africa side. And they want sometimes to be able to manage their affairs. Worst thing is when you send your money, Danny, like a remittance, and say pay the bill,
And it not pay?
and then you come in for Christmas, and the water still disconnect.
Yes.
So the app gives you that solution.
Gives you the power in your hand to pay your own
Right,
bill.
that's so. Right, so you can track your bill. You can opt to send the bill to tenants. You can arrange for the tenant to receive the bill if you have a rental situation going on. A lot of persons have, whether they're Airbnb or their own other version of rental. And you can manage your thing. You can see your consumption patterns. You can request for an additional supply. So if you want new supply, if you want to reconnect, disconnect, the app allows that. What time? Any time of day, any time of night. If you are reporting leaks, requesting joggers pass for going around the Mona Reservoir, any other kind of miscellaneous service.
It's all the services basically in one.
Right
just
in
the
your
palm.
hand. So we have a slogan that we're working with, because the app is also complemented by our kiosk rollout, which is persons being able to pay at the kiosk
So they don't
machine.
have to join the long lines anymore.
No
And they shouldn't be
lines.
afraid of the kiosk.
And it's free.
And it's free.
Yes.
So you save, it's how much again? $50?
Yeah, or
Or
any dollars.
any dollars you save it.
Right, it's free. And we're also rolling out our e-bill, which is to encourage persons to sign up to receive their bills via their emails. So we're calling all three services NWC Tech Charge.
I like that. I
Technology,
like that.
so
Yeah.
You can take charge of your
Yeah.
affairs.
That's nice. This will cope with that, Charles.
And Sadiq. Sadiq came up with it.
That's nice.
Sadiq is my team member, guys, and our marketing officer. So big up, Sadiq.
Wonderful. Mr. Thompson, I'm just going to have to tell everybody that together as ministry and agencies, including the Water Resources Authority, we have your best interests at heart. And through delivery of potable water and sewage services, we are improving your lives. And we just want you to work with us. Pardon us, sometimes we have to be doing some work, but it's all towards your betterment. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us on the MEGJC Matrix. And thank you for tuning in to the MEGJC Matrix. We invite you to connect with us on the MEGJC platforms, of course, at MEGJC_JM. And of course, be sure to connect with our agencies, NWC at NWC Jam and Rural Water Supply Limited at RWSLJA. Until next time, I'm your host, Danny Clark.